Hello and welcome back to the Getting Married Multiculturally podcast. I'm your host, Edith, and I'm here to talk with you all about multicultural relationships, cross-cultural weddings, and pretty much everything that comes with this, language barriers, moving to a new country, learning about cultural differences, traditions. And today we're going to be talking about a very, very important topic that I haven't discussed yet, and that is racism. And you probably know that already from the title. But today is a very significant day in America. It is called Juneteenth. Today is June 19, 2020, in case you are listening this in the future. And those of you who don't know what Juneteenth is, it's an unofficial American holiday. Although many people are trying to make it an official federal holiday. And this holiday is the commemoration of the end of the slavery here in the United States, the day when African Americans celebrate their freedom in this country. And here we are, more than 150 years later, there are movements all around the world. So I'm thinking, and I want to take this opportunity and this occasion to talk about racism and talk about the protesting that is happening in America and all over the world. First of all, I have taken a bunch of notes for this episode. Usually I like to just ramble around, but I wanted to make sure that I say everything that was in my mind, and I wanted to make sure that I say it properly. This topic is so sensitive, and I know that a lot of people are so worried about speaking up or saying their opinion because because they're afraid that it's gonna be bad or wrong. So I am gonna risk that, and I'm gonna talk about this the way I see it, the way I feel it. So I just wanted to mention to you that I do have a bunch of things that I'm going to be reading out loud. And if you want to see my notes, you can go to my blog where I publish all of my show notes. It's edithvashadi.com/blog. And if you're listening this episode sometime in the future, I wanted to give you a little context just to help you understand why are we talking about this now. Although we should be talking about racism other times too, but right now there are a lot of protests going on around the world against racism and police violence that started after George Floyd's death on May 25th. He was a black man killed by a white police officer. So it's been more than 3 weeks since this happened. 3 weeks since America is boiling and fighting, and I would like to use my podcast to ask you, how are you feeling and what are your thoughts about this situation? I know that many of you are, following what's happening in the news. Some of you live in America. Some of you are maybe out there protesting. Some of you are doing some kind of action against racism, and some of you are, like I mentioned, in different countries and just watching what's happening and maybe a little bit even confused. This podcast being about multicultural couples, we talk all about all kinds of culture, and culture comes with many different colors. So I always thought or assumed that you listening this would just know that I'm not racist. But then you hear people talking about how we should educate ourselves and realize what's happening around us, that we should look into ourselves and take actions to end racism, and not just say that this is not my problem or this doesn't apply to me. So I did it. I have been listening. I listened news, stories, horrible videos. I watched passionate Black people speeches, and I have to say that there are so many things that I did not realize. Being a white European woman living in America for 12 years, yes, I do have white privilege. And yes, that's probably why I didn't know much about what's going on. Not just because I have the white privilege, but also because I am not from this country. I didn't grow up here, and I haven't studied a history of America in America. Only what we have learned in Europe, and only what movies we watched in Europe that all of us know what kind of representation that shows to us, movies and music. And you hear stories here and there, but there are bad people and violence everywhere in the world. So I didn't think, why and how is this affecting Black people so much? Racist people are everywhere, but I wanted to believe that in today's day and age, there's more good in the world. And, you can call me naive, but I haven't met anybody who's being racist or any Black American who's been sharing horrible stories with me. Or do they have them? They're just not sharing them with me or with other people. Okay, for the listeners who don't live in America or never been in America or doesn't understand why is this all of a sudden happening, we are living in we are in the middle of a huge pandemic. Again, if you're listening this in the future, we've been in quarantine for months. A lot of people have lost their job, financially struggling. Many people died, and there's just a lot of anger and disappointment. And I'm not gonna get any political, but there's just a lot of intention in this country, and in other countries too. So I'm not an expert, but a lot of people are saying that's probably why this all happened now, because racism and injustice been happening for a long time now. So what is the protest against or about? They are protesting against racism, but more specifically, they want to end systematic racism in America and police brutality. And for those of you who doesn't know much about American system or the American history and culture, systematic racism means, and I Googled this, so it's not coming from me because I also had to get educated on this. It means the systems in place create and maintain racial inequality for people of color. For example, it's harder for them to get good education, go to good school, be successful in their career, or even get a good job. There's a high unemployment, and there's also housing discrimination, and many other things that I don't want to really get into it, or I don't want to discuss, because this is something that if you want to get educated on this, then you can look up. There are many articles and podcasts about this. If you think about it, racism is something that every person with color has to deal with, because you are being judged just the way you look. But in America, it's a bit more complicated and brings up much deeper issues, as you can see. So let me share my personal experience, because whenever we hear something, we try to dig into our memories and think of a reason, that's something that resonates with us, something that we can empathize with, or with this situation, or with somebody's story or somebody's life's experience, or maybe we end up having a complete different opinion or want to argue about something. And, there's nothing wrong with arguing and disagreeing, I should say. That's what makes us learn, and that's what makes us understand better where the other person is coming from. So the country I was born and raised in, I was a minority. And I know, there's many of you gonna say that's not the same. And I know it is definitely not the same. But as somebody who has a privilege to be white, I believe that there are still feelings and pain buried in my heart and in my soul that I can empathize with African Americans or people of color. So as a minority, I constantly had to fight for my rights, and I felt that it's not fair how I'm treated just because my culture, nationality, or language is different. And yes, I know these are not necessarily something visual that people see immediately, although sometimes people box others in certain categories based on their hair color or eye color, shape of their nose or body type. They can say, oh, you look like Italian, you look like you are Hungarian or Serbian. But in general, they wouldn't know I'm different or, I'm not like them until I open my mouth and until they hear my accent or that I speak in a language whose culture they hate. I was told many times by my parents to not speak or be quiet in a public so they don't know. I know it's not racism. I know, let me just say this again, but I think, in my opinion, the pain is the same. Why can't I own who I am and where I come from? I didn't choose this. I was born like this. And I'm also proud to be ... I'm proud to be Hungarian. I'm proud to be Black. I'm proud to be a woman. And that's something that I can't hide because I'm worried that I'm going to be attacked or killed or judged because I'm a woman. But we can also bring religion and gender equality and LGBTQ people in here, So I know that there are some people that have been spoken up and, shared their opinion and their feelings towards these protests that we're going now against racism. People who have been fighting and have created movements for what they believe in and for fighting for who they are. And I'm not trying to take take the spotlight off of or focus off of the Black people's injustice in America, because that's not what this episode is about. But don't be upset when people are trying to find similarity or empathy as they talk about, fighting and protesting against gender inequality or marriage equality and many other discriminations. We are all fighting for something in our life, and we all want peace. We all want to be accepted for who we are. We all want to be treated and seen as equal. We are all humans, right? And when people share their stories that feel not the same to you, I would encourage you to listen. They are sharing a feeling that helps them bring you closer to them or bring them closer to you, because those who have a different skin color will never fully understand what you've been going through. Now, systematic or institutional racism and discrimination, that's something more complex and difficult to change for us simple people, but we can fight with you against it. We can encourage each other to include people with all color in our circle, in our little life bubble, in our businesses, in our friends circle. And here's the thing. If I'm walking in an empty street in the middle of the night and I see a man walking towards me or, just passing the street, would I get scared? Would I freak out? Yes, I would. Doesn't matter what color you are. I'm judging you because of your gender. Because you're a man and I'm scared because I don't feel safe. If I see a police officer, will I judge them? Yes, I will. After hearing and seeing what's going on in this country, after, learning what's been going on that I wasn't paying attention to, yes, I would be scared. I will be scared to get pulled over. People People just judge each other all the time. If I tell you that I'm from Eastern Europe, will you judge me? Do all of those conceptions and stories you hear and see in movies come up? Are you judging me? But do you know how Black people in America are judged? They're scared to go jogging in the middle of the day, for example. And yes, I'm talking about Ahmaud Arbery, who was 25 years old Black man who was shot on February 23rd. And yes, he was just jogging. It's unbelievable and it's disgusting for me. Many of you listening from other countries may not know many cases that are happening or haven't heard about many things or doesn't think that it's so significant or it's important or whatnot. And to be honest, I didn't know either that how bad and scary it is to be Black in this country, because I wasn't judging these people by their color. I didn't assume anything of them, and I don't know if that's because I didn't grow up here. I didn't go to school here. I didn't have parents who are white Americans. So I don't know if that's why, but I was able to see them. I was able to see them without judging, like Americans would say. Many people do judge them, and even if they think they're not racist, sometimes they would put assumptions based on their skin color. And, many of us said that not every Black person is a criminal. Not every cop is bad. Not every insert nationality here is this or that. And also, when I get into a conversation with somebody who is a minority, no matter where I live in a world, I'm not necessarily talking about America, I always try to be like extra nice and open to them so they feel that I'm not judging them, because I know how they feel, so I want to feel them welcome into my conversation or into my circle or whatever is happening in that situation, or if they're strangers on the street or whatnot. But again, many of them don't feel that way. They don't feel like they need to be treated special or different or extra because they're a minority. So again, I'm judging them by thinking they are thinking to be judged. I don't know if you understand that. Okay, I think I'm going down here now. I'm going to get back to my notes, but let me know if I'm being a little bit confusing or off topic. I'm trying not to get off topic, but I do have more experience with this, and I think it somewhat aligns with the feelings and pain Black Americans have. But let me know if I'm wrong. I'm just here sharing my thoughts and my feelings, because like this podcast is about, like my marriage is about being in a multicultural, intercultural relationship, family. And so what about people? What about you? What about us who choose somebody from a different country, from a different culture or race? And for example, in my marriage, when we are in America, I am the different, the foreigner. And when we are in Hungary, then my husband is the one who is the outsider, who feels like needs to put extra effort in to fit in, And obviously I don't have any experience with interracial relationships, but I always love listening your stories, or, even if it's funny or sad. I'm sure that you have a lot more, listen a lot more people's opinion and judgments, because you look different visually. Like, people wouldn't know that my husband and I are from different culture, because we're from the same race. And I had this thought the other day, and I'm glad that I just remembered, because truly, when we feel like the world is against us, our relationships just becomes so much stronger, right? Because we feel like there's something that connects us, and we can share our feelings, and we feel like somebody understands us and is adopting our feelings and can feel our pain, and we can just pour our heart into this other person. And I that's what I love about interracial relationship. It's just so much fun for me to see them work together, to see them support each other, and then when they have children together, that's adds up another special miracle to the world. So I would love to know, how do you guys navigate race in your intercultural or interracial relationship? How do you deal with racism in America as a Black couple or as an interracial couple? And also, like, not just in America, because I think African Americans can maybe learn something about your experience as a Black person who never lived in America, who is not American, but has to deal with racism against Black people. And also, let me just say that there are many other races, not just white and Black. So all races, all interracial couples are welcome, of course. So if you would like to be my guest on this show, please come. I would love to hear your story. I would love to give you the opportunity to have your voice be heard. The more stories, the more voices we heard, the better. So you can apply and send your application at podcast.editvashadi.com, or you can also just go to gettingmarriedmulticulturally.com, whatever is easier for you. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I really hope that I didn't offend anybody, or I hope I didn't make anybody mad at me. My heart is open, and please ask any questions or share anything that you would like with me. Something that I forgot to mention or something that I should have not said. You can DM me on Instagram. That's the easiest, at Edith Bashadi. And I would love to get this conversation going. African Americans, I am here listening to your pain, to your struggles. I feel hope for you, that change and justice is coming to this country and coming to everybody in the world. I hope, and my goal with this podcast and this community is that we can all feel safe to share our opinion on our feelings, happy or sad, no matter where you are in the world, what skin color you have, the culture, ethnicity, or gender. So if you want to connect, feel free to join my Facebook group, Getting Married Multiculturally. What I have done and have been doing for a while here is giving people a place and opportunity to share their story, to speak up, and to educate others. And my promise is to share and feature more and more African Americans and interracial couples during this difficult time, and to continue to be open-minded and to understand you better. Peace! Sziasztok!